We're in the village of Ladomirova, which has a precious architectural church. The church, as you will see from the outside pictures here, is built in the Lemko style. It's the most prevalent style of wooden churches in Slovakia. It's amazing to me that this church and others we will see were built before the United States became the United States, which was 1776. This particular church we're looking at was built in 1742. That was 200 years before I was born. And it is still here. It is still used. It is not a museum. It is a parish church where liturgy is celebrated all the time. The church is dedicated to St. Michael the Archangel. The village, the rectory, and the church were vastly damaged in World War II. The church was restored in 1946 after the war, but because of weathering and being where it is, it's just in a little village. It was badly damaged again by a storm in 1957. The church was repaired in 1958. As you can see, the interior of the church is old. The pews are newer, but as far as the icon screen, the walls, the ceiling, they're originals. The iconostas itself was renovated in various stages for the last time between 1996 and the year 2006. It took a long time, but it was well worth the effort. As we're panning the icon screen, we see here below the icons of the Mother of God and St. Michael, the pictures of two of the great martyrs of our church, Blessed Paul Gojdich and Blessed Basil Hopko, who were bishops in Prešov. I also noted that in just about every church, not only wooden church, but built, say, even in the last few years, the people have a great devotion to their two martyrs, and there are images of them and their relics in the churches. We see here the ladder that the cantor has to go up to the choir loft. We're entering now the sanctuary. Notice they're doorless. It's also very low. I don't know if the people 200 years ago or so were shorter, but certainly I had a duck. This is the altar. And here we see the ever-present Baba, Notice that she has a remote in her hand, and she's trying to start the narration about the inside of the church, which you will hear in English.
Glory to Jesus Christ. I wholeheartedly welcome you to the most well-known wooden Greek Catholic Church, consecrated to St. Michael the Archangel in the village of Radomirova. We are situated in the beautiful area of the low Beskidi Mountains, in the picturesque valley of the river Radomirka. Radomirova is the second largest village in Svidnik County. Its first written record comes from the year 1414, when it was the only village in the Radomirka River Valley and the northernmost in the area. It had 16 serf houses, an overseer's dwelling, a mill, a tax office, a church, a parish house, a school, and the landlord's home. The villagers made their living by farming, raising cattle, and working in the forest. In the village also lived barbers, folk healers, who cut people's veins in order to bring them to health. The Church of St. Michael the Archangel is a place consecrated to God, where the faithful gather for His glorification and their own sanctification. To begin from the outside, the churchyard is complemented by an old cemetery, a wooden frame bell tower, and log fencing with an entrance gate. The church itself was built in 1742, and from an architectural point of view, is one of the most valuable wooden churches in Slovakia and in the world. It is a tripartite log structure consisting of 3 square bases, the largest belonging to the nave and the smallest to the entrance hall. In addition, the entrance hall is completed by a planked foyer, which surrounds its pillar construction on all 3 sides, enclosing and protecting it entirely. Within, extremely ornate cupolas in each individual room decorate the gradual ceiling. The ceiling is also multifaceted. The entryway has a straight ceiling. The nave is curved into a rare octagonal vault symbolizing eternity, while a cut cone shapes the sanctuary. Above the nave is a choir loft, accessible by ladder-like stairs. The church is constructed entirely from wood, for in the past, no nails were used in the building of churches, since nails were the means of Jesus' torture. Therefore, the builders substituted hard wooden wedges for the nails. Furthermore, the walls are covered with board siding or interwoven log planks. The roof is shingled and rises in 3 towers, which are finished with Baroque onion domes and handmade iron crosses. These 3 towers symbolize the Most Holy Trinity. Beneath the towers, the space is divided into 3 parts: an entrance hall, a nave, and a sanctuary for liturgical purposes. The entrance hall, or so-called babinets, in the past served for people who could not take part in the whole service. This group was comprised of persons who were either preparing to receive baptism or the baptized who were fulfilling a public penance on account of their sins. They were required to leave the services before the profession of faith, at which point begins the second part of the liturgy, the so-called Liturgy of the Faithful. The priest would exclaim, the doors, in wisdom let us be attentive," and the doors were closed behind them. The nave serves as a place for the faithful people attending the services. They represent the angelic choirs incessantly glorifying God. The solea is here, an elevated step connecting the nave and the sanctuary, where the gifts brought to church were placed. You can also see banners here on the right and left sides, which symbolize the church militant, and at the same time, Christ's victory over sin and death. In the center of the church stands an analoi, a table where an icon is placed for veneration. The icon changes according to the feast celebrated at the time. The sanctuary represents the higher world, paradise or heaven. In the center of it, you behold the main altar, on which is offered the sacrifice for the whole world. On the altar lays the Gospel book in the original Church Slavonic language. This language is used in the Holy Liturgy to this day. Above the altar, you can see the icon depicting the protection of Our Lady from the 18th century. There is also a žrtvenik, a small table in the left corner where the offered gifts are prepared. The sanctuary is separated from the nave by an iconostasis, in Greek, he eikon, meaning icon or picture. In this church, the iconostasis was made in the Baroque style and comes from the first half of the 18th century. The icons which adorn it are placed according to a set and unchangeable rule. The main purpose of the iconostasis was to make the words of the Holy Gospel present and accessible to the people in an expressive format. The main row of the iconostasis is comprised of four main icons. On the left, the Theotokos, or Mother of God, and Saint Nicholas. And on the right, Jesus Christ, and an icon depicting the patronal feast, or the patron of the church. In this church, it is the icon of Saint Michael the Archangel. The main icons are divided by two deacon doors and royal doors in the center. The royal doors are reserved for the bishop, priest, and in some cases the deacon, during the celebration of the Divine Liturgy and other services. Above the main row are icons featuring events from the life of Jesus Christ and the Theotokos, with the icon of the Last Supper in the middle. It is interesting to note that the icon of the Last Supper in this church does not have 12, but 13 apostles. There are different explanations for this, that the owner of the house was present at the supper, according to John 17:8, or Saint Matthias, who would have already had a share in the fellowship of the apostles. The iconostasis continues with another row of the 12 apostles, depicted with the means of their martyrdom. In the center of these reigns the icon of the Pantokrator, Jesus Christ seated on the throne, which symbolizes Christ as the King of the universe. Going higher, there are the 12 Old Testament prophets, depicted in circular medals. Finally, the iconostasis is crowned with the Calvary scene, with the Theotokos and the Apostle John under the cross. In this church, you can also see icons and a processional cross from the 17th and 18th centuries, loosely hanging from the walls in the nave. The origin of these icons is not very clear. They are most likely gifts from the faithful or from other churches no longer existing. We can see, for example, an icon of the Pantokrator, an icon of Saint Basil the Great, and an icon of Saint Nicholas from the 17th century. The processional cross is used in processions around the church. This cross is unique because it bears two images. On the front, the crucifixion of the Lord, and on the back, his mother Mary, whose heart is pierced by a sword, according to the words of the prophet Simeon in the 2nd chapter of the Gospel of Luke. Your own soul will be pierced by a sword. The interior of the church also boasts of ornate, colored candles. The reconstruction of the church building began in the year 1992 with reparative works done on the highest tower of the church. From 1992 to 2006, the iconostasis and free hanging icons of the church were completely restored, thanks to the funds provided by the Pro-Slovakia Foundation of the Department of Culture of the Slovak Republic, the Foundation of the Slovak Gas Industry, and other benefactors. Two other wooden churches also belong to the Ladomirova parish. The Church of St. Michael the Archangel in Shemetkovce from the year 1752, known for its many precious icons, and the picturesque Church of St. Basil the Great in Krajny Cherno. We hold liturgical celebrations in all of these churches up to this day. I hope you enjoy the beauty of this church and that it will now be closer to your heart. Christ is among us.
We're in the Svidnik district and in a little village called Koryovce. And again, we have a church that's almost 250 years old. Amazing little church up on the hill, sort of outside of the village proper. The church is dedicated to the protection of the Theotokos, the Mother of God. And just like some other villages and churches in Slovakia, this church, along with the village, was damaged, almost destroyed during World War II. Probably in the year 1944. But people needing their church, a place to gather for liturgy, they restored the church by 1947. The renovation of the church and the belfry, which we will see later, was finished in the year 2000. As you see, this church is very, very tiny. You can imagine how crowded it is on Sundays. You'll notice the icon screen has, on the first level, the floor level, only one icon, the icon of the Mother of God. There are the royal doors, the deacon doors, and the icon of Christ is actually above the royal doors and the icon of the Mother of God. Built in 1764, the Greek Catholic Church of the Protection of the Mother of God sits on a stone foundation. A three-chambered building of logs, the nave and the sanctuary are covered by unusual tented roofs with small onion spires and fine decorative crosses. The women's section is not typical because it is the same width as the nave and has a porch. The iconostasis from the second half of the 18th century is not complete. Only portions of it have been preserved. Next to the church is a wooden belfry, which was built in 1949. Inside are three bells. The first bell is from 1769, with a relief of the Holy Family. The second bell dates from 1771 and is decorated with a cross and depictions of the Virgin Mary and of the Holy Trinity. The last bell is from 1835 and is decorated with oak leaves. We're entering the sanctuary now. Again, very small. There's the altar. The icon screen, they told us, dates back to the 18th century. And it was from a wooden church in another village called Krajna Bistra. Here we see the festal icons. They're not the Stations of the Cross. Because the church is so small, they have to put the festal icons, the feast day icons, on the side walls. We also see here, as in other churches, a small shrine to Blessed Basil Hopko and Blessed Paul Goydich. In front of their pictures are the authenticates signed by the postulator and Archbishop Babyak authenticating the relics. Now we see the bell tower. As you see, it's been renovated, and we have our seminarians inside with the sexton, the porter, and they will ring the bells for us.
Okay.
We're now in the village of Nizhny Komarnik, and we will be looking at the church, the Greek Catholic Church, dedicated to the protection of the Theotokos. Again, it's built up on a hill, and as you can see, the village is down below, and we see some of the monuments here from the wars that this area went through. The church that we'll see is built in the Boyko style. It's the only Boyko style church in Slovakia. The original church was built probably in the middle of the 18th century. Some of the sources say that the church was built in 1788. But during World War II, the church was damaged, and little by little, it was dismantled in the 1960s. The wooden church that we're in here was built in 1938, and again, it was dedicated to the protection of the Theotokos, the protection of the Mother of God. At the end of World War II, in 1944, the whole village was completely destroyed, and the church was damaged, but still survivable. And the people, of course, needed their place of worship, and they quickly restored the church after the war. The building has 3 parts, 3 spaces with 3 towers. All are finished with decorated metal crosses in the form that those iron crosses, probably all made by hand. The cross above the nave in that particular dome is a bit bigger. The building sits on a stone foundation, and it's very rustic, as you can see, except for the icon screen that we're looking at right now. The icon screen could be dated to the beginning or the middle of the 19th century. We presume that some of the icons are from the original iconostasis from the first church. So they would date to the middle of the 18th century. There are 3 rows. The second row of feast is missing, and prophets are above and aside of the iconostasis. The first main row consists of icons of St. Nicholas, the Theotokos, Christ the Teacher, and of course the icon of the protection of the Theotokos, Pokrov. We just entered into the sanctuary, and as you noticed, instead of deacon doors, there are only holes. The royal doors have 2 leaves, 2 doors, depicting the 4 evangelists. Above the royal doors is the mystical supper, and the 3rd apostolic row contains the icons of the individual apostles, with the icon of Christ the High Priest in the middle. The top of the icon screen, as we saw, is finished with a 1-bar cross with the Theotokos and St. John the Theologian on the sides. The iconostasis was renovated between the years 2002 and 2005. And the church itself underwent a restoration between 2003 and 2004. You see a large area here of the vestibule, the entrance of the church. Beautiful woodwork all the way to the top of the dome. All 3 of the domes inside are 8-sided, octagonal. And we see here also some of the festal icons. Most of these village churches, of course, have their own cemeteries. And besides the church, we have usually the bell tower. In the cemeteries, we have not only the families, family members from the village, but we also occasionally have a pastor, a priest, the parish priest, who is buried along with deceased members of his flock. We're here in the village of Potoki, and we're in the church cemetery, and we're approaching the gate of the church. This church was restored between 2009 and 2010 with the help of the Commission for the Preservation of America's Heritage Abroad. One of the members of that commission and very instrumental in restoring this church was a Greek Catholic, Vincent Opsitnik, who later became ambassador of the United States to Slovakia. Vince, by the way, was the first American ambassador to Slovakia who was born in Slovakia. This church, the original, was built in 1773. It's dedicated to Saint Paraskiva, and again, just like the other churches we visited, the world wars damaged the church. This one, not too much. And the original repair work was done between 1956 and 1957. As we saw, and we'll see right now, the church is characterized by an extremely high main tower. The church is built in a rectangular plan, and on top of that tower we see a one-bar cross. Unfortunately, for some reason, which is still a mystery to us, the lady who's the caretaker of this church, the priest was not around, but the lady wouldn't allow us to film inside. And so we will go to some photographs of the interior of the church. The iconostasis, or icon screen, probably just like the altar behind the holy doors, is probably from the 18th century. The icon screen contains rare icons, and some of the icons are missing from the original church. The deacon doors have no doors, they're only holes. The royal doors, of course, have two doors containing the medallions, the icons of the four evangelists, and two medallions of the Annunciation. We see the icons of St. Nicholas, the Theotokos, Christ the Teacher, and Saint Paraskiva, the patroness of the church. Above those icons, we have the icons of the feasts, the main feast of our church. In the middle is the icon of the Last Supper, the mystical supper, and unfortunately we can't get too close, but it has 13 apostles. We also have a row of the icons of the apostles with the icon of Christ the high priest in the middle. There are some icons in this church that are unidentifiable, which is curious. But they are there and have been part of the faith of these people. In the bell tower of this church, the bell was dedicated in 1839. This church, as we see, is also in the Lemko style. The three domes progressively getting higher and a bit larger. Beautiful architecture for a beautiful church in a wonderful country.